I really enjoy French whiskey, but I don't speak French. So I can't read any of this. I mean, it says it's single malt whiskey. Hey guys, I'm Nath Martyn, the Whisky Scribe. I'm a whiskey enthusiast and I love all things whiskey. But there's a lot of different whiskies out there from a lot of different countries. So whether you consider yourself a connoisseur or you're just looking to understand more about whiskey, let's explore it all together. If you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button. I put up regular whiskey review videos and some educational pieces. You can also follow me over on Instagram. I do enjoy exploring French whiskey, and fortunately I do have some family living over there in France. So every now and again when somebody goes over to visit and they ask me if I want them to bring back some whiskey for me, I tell them to avoid the travel exclusives from the airport and go for something that's actually French. Because the French surprisingly make wonderful whiskey, they just usually don't share it with the rest of the world. Kind of like Australia with our beer, we just give you our Fosters. We don't drink that here. And so that's how I got this one. Now, because it comes straight from France, everything on the box and everything on the bottle is all written in French. I don't speak French. I might seem pretty cultured sometimes, but I do not speak French. So what I can tell you on the bottle, as far as I can tell from reading the French, is it says Benjamin Kuentz. I think that's the person who bottled it. The bottling is called Fin de Partie. It's single malt and it's French. But from some of the websites that I managed to glean, it's produced by an independent bottler called Benjamin Kuentz, who works with grain farmers and distillers that work with passion and ethics from all over France. The whiskey release is a single malt that's aged 6 to 9 years in a mix of ex-bourbon, cognac, Pedro Jimenez, Oloroso and virgin oak barrels, bottled at 46%, non-chill filtered, unpeated, and no mention of colour. I've actually never really come across any French whiskies that have had colour added, or at least that advertise that they do, so I mean, this is actually pretty light. If this has colour added, I mean, why? If you're going to add colour, why add that little? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say this is no colour added. I've mentioned before that I'm working through a backlog on whiskies that I should have reviewed a long time ago, but parenting is hard and I'm only just starting to get into a bit of a groove now. So I'm not going to tell you how long this has been sitting there in my collection waiting for me to try it. But one of the things I really like to do when I'm doing these YouTube videos is if I've never tried a whiskey before and I'm going to review it on the channel, I want the first time that I try it to be the time that I genuinely do it on camera, so that you get to see my genuine first impressions of this whiskey. And I consider myself to be a whiskey explorer, so trying a new, different whiskey for the first time is where I really get my kicks out of this. This is what I enjoy. I love trying different whiskeys from different countries. One of these days I'm going to do a video talking about all the different countries around the world that produce whiskey, because I think it's a lot more than most of us would realize. Now look, you could already see it from the bottle, but this is a surprisingly light colored whiskey. And we're talking about something that's unpeated, 6 to 9 years of age. And yes, it's from a mix of casks, but some of those casks are Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry cask. So for there to be that little color on here, like this is a really light straw color whiskey. It almost looks more like white wine. As I've said before, if it looks like white wine and you go into a wine party, just fill your white wine glass up with a nice light colored whiskey and just really enjoy your time. But wonderfully slow moving legs, which I love. On the nose, that's really interesting. When I see a whiskey that is a light color like this, my mind almost always, if it's not a peated whiskey, because I've said before, Islay whiskies have a tendency to be really, really light in color. But if it's an unpeated whiskey and I see a light color like this, I'm thinking of something like a lowland whiskey. which is often like a light grassy sort of flavor, maybe a little bit of straw, but this, all the aromas coming across on this are like old and musty and oily. So I'm getting like damp, musty wood. There's a little bit of those sorts of like oily chocolate notes that you sometimes get on a whiskey. But this, it's coming across as like a really hearty, almost like a whiskey that's going to be chewy. That's the impression I'm getting on the nose, that the palate is going to be one of those whiskeys that's so oily that it's almost chewy. If I'm getting anything in here that I would call a fruit note, we're talking like fermented or like, you know, preserved fruits that have got a lot of other things thrown in there with them. But yeah, for the most part, damp wood, maybe damp straw, mushrooms, a note I've never said about whiskey. This is too intriguing. I need to go in. Slash. This is going to sound like I'm throwing a French stereotype out there, but I'm also almost getting like this cheese funk happening. That oily note that was on the nose, how it's coming across now on the palate, and in reflection, that's probably a little bit of what was there on the nose. It's like this cheese sort of funk. Like if you've ever walked into a cheese factory where, like, you know, the cheese is fermenting or processing or whatever it is that cheese does, there's this cheese funk going on there that is awesome. There's a little bit of like some herbal sort of note happening, more spice rather than herb. There's a bit of white pepper. The thing that's really, really cool is just this funky sort of cheese note on the palate, which makes me think that this would be a sensational whiskey to have on a cheese board, to sort of like have it counter with all the different cheeses that are on there. Like, you know, where you have like a cheese board with 5 different cheeses and like alternating between them all keeps changing your palate. This would be a sensational whiskey to do that interplay. But this does not come across like a Scottish whiskey. Now, I've known for a long time that the French make really, really good whiskey. For a long time, the French were the biggest importers of whiskey in the world, the biggest importers of Scottish whiskey in the world. The Indians have overtaken them, and not because the French have cut back. It's just that the Indian has there's a growing Indian market for whiskey. But if I did not know that the French also make whiskey and had like a love of single malt Scottish whiskey, and you asked me how the French would make a whiskey, and I was going to run with all those stereotypes about cheese and France and stuff, this is exactly the kind of whiskey that I would expect them to make, something that somehow just has like this funky sort of cheese element going on. And I've, like, from what little bit of research I could find online in English-speaking notes, there's like, I pulled up the notes for this whiskey. Supposedly, it says that on the nose, you've got a bouquet of wood and chocolate aromas, which I 110% got. It says that the palate opens with dried fruit and a touch of custard. There's a creamy texture of custard going on in there. I wouldn't call it the flavor of custard. It's just the creamy texture. But it says that the finish brings out prunes, spices, pepper. I do get the white pepper. But there's nothing on here about this, like, honestly, there's just this genuine cheese kind of funk. Like, if you think about, I need to research more about cheese, but it's kind of like that, like a cream cheese that's not fully finished yet, but like in the factory where it's being made. I do love cheese, but I never remember anything about it, but I've been to some of the factories. And yeah, this palate, it's this oily cheese funk going on, which is really, really awesome. So if you want to explore French whiskey, this would be an awesome one to try, especially if you're somebody who likes to try a whiskey from a different country and expects something different, rather than just getting a whiskey that's just a copy of what they do in Scotland or Ireland or America. I'm really happy to have tried this, because that funk is amazing. I'm going to explore the cheese pairing later, but the for the record too, the name of the bottle, the name of the whiskey itself is that Fin de Partie, is the end of the party. But I kind of feel like this is actually like right smack bang in the middle of the party. So apparently I filmed a few too many videos today. The card on my other camera is full, it's stopped recording. So I've reverted to my secondary camera just to finish up on this. But this, if you're ever looking for a French whiskey that is different, unique, it's it's just different to the norm. It's not just a standard copy of a Scottish whiskey. Go with the Benjamin Kuentz Fin de Partie, or anything other by Benjamin Kuentz. I think I need to explore more of his range, because this is a really, really enjoyable whiskey. It's uniquely French, like that cheese element. Again, I'm playing on a stereotype here, but seriously, I almost feel like this whiskey would pair nicely with wine. I will always encourage you to explore other countries, other whiskeys, other styles, just to constantly expand your palate. But at the end of the day, enjoy what you enjoy, what's in your glass, and slange.